Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder. When a young King Arthur is being pursued by creatures from beyond, his prayers for help are answered, but not by the god he prayed to. Instead, Thor, god of thunder, comes to his aid. This meeting of two legends would go on to inspire them both to do great things. Let's see how their legendary first encounter went on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, Prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
The Two Worthies was written by sci-fi writer Christopher Ruocchio and was published as a backup story in 2021's Avengers number 750. Britain, the late 5th century. A boy runs for his life with demonic monsters at his heels. He finds a clearing with a rune stone, and he decides to make his last stand here. He draws his last arrow, and he prays. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. His last arrow shatters on the creature's armor-like skin, and his hopes shatter with it. He reaches for his knife, only now realizing just how small it is, and he prepares to meet his end. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. These beasts make for poor sport. Had their queen but known Thor was here, she would have sent an army. The boy gets to his feet and asks his protector what these creatures are. Brood. Invaders from beyond the circles of your world. These beasts should have known better than to come to Midgard. Thor notes that they are young based on their coloring. That must mean the brood queen has already made her nest. More come. More? Guard yourself. Let us make this contest more interesting. Fear not, lad. These broodlings are no match for the son of Odin. I pray your queen is watching, monsters! Let this be a lesson! I did not believe they were real. Odin, Loki, Thor, the old gods of Asgard. There is only one god, and yet... maybe we were wrong. Or maybe one god made all the others. Where did you... A young brood scout reveals itself and leaps upon the youth. The boy manages to roll the creature off of him and plunges his knife into it. His victory is short-lived. The broodling pulls the blade out of its limb. The wound is shallow. The creature is annoyed. And the boy is unarmed. He turns to see the mighty hammer that the thunder god discarded and desperately reaches for it. He grabs it, but it's too heavy. Despite all his efforts, the hammer won't budge. The recovered broodling is now upon the boy once again, and as he prepares to meet his end, the immovable hammer flies through the air. Enough gaming about! You really are Thor. Of course I am. Did you doubt it? I thought you were just a story. There are many stories about me. Are you well, lad? Those things. A hunting party. I go to seek their nest. The brood queen must be driven from your world. Return to your home, son of Midgard. And take heart. You fought bravely. Wait! Your hammer. It's so heavy. How can you lift it? Mjolnir is not heavy. The hammer may only be wielded by a worthy hand. By my hand. So... I'm unworthy? Peace. Mjolnir was ensorcelled to me by the All-Father himself. It is mine. But how could I become worthy? Become worthy? Ha! You are but a child of Midgard and no god. What is your name, lad? Arthur. Take heart, friend Arthur. Mjolnir is not your burden. You will find your own. Everyone is worthy of something. Everyone is worthy of something indeed. For one day, Arthur would pull the sword out of the stone and become the rightful king of the Britons. I've seen Mjolnir compared to the sword and the stone from Arthurian legend a few times, but never has such a direct comparison been made in the comics. Here we learn that a young Arthur had an encounter with Thor that helped inspire him to become worthy of his own burden, which eventually led to him pulling the sword out of the stone. At the same time, Thor seems inspired by Arthur. This is a young Thor who hasn't fully established his love and respect for the humans of Earth. Here, he's a bit taken aback, and at the same time impressed by a young mortal wanting to be worthy of Mjolnir. Thor, a god, spent his whole life trying to be worthy of it, and this boy wants to achieve the same thing, wants to achieve the ultimate honor of the gods. Thor takes note of the boy as being someone truly worthy of his respect, and then asks for his name. Rather than discouraging him, Thor tells Arthur that Mjolnir is his burden, but that he will find his own burden to be worthy of. I think comic writers should take Thor's words here to heart. Being worthy of Mjolnir is seen as this great achievement that only the greatest heroes and most morally sound individuals should have. Because of that, a character not being worthy of Mjolnir is seen as a slight. How can Superman not be worthy? How can Goku not be worthy? Are you saying that Thor is a better hero and person than they are? No. Mjolnir is Thor's burden. Thor, at his best, perfectly fits all the requirements of being worthy of Mjolnir. Just because Superman or any other hero isn't worthy of it isn't a slight. It's just that they're not Thor. Arthur is not lesser because he can't lift Mjolnir, just as Thor isn't lesser because he can't pull the sword out of the stone. Now, to wrap this video up, I'd like to talk about an issue that unfortunately plagues this comic and Arthurian legend in Marvel. I'm a fan of Arthurian legend, and it's good to see Thor interact with it. But this story also helps highlight what a mess the Arthurian timeline is in Marvel. This comic takes place in the late 5th century, which is good. The late 5th century is the time frame that the real person King Arthur is based on lived, and most Marvel stories about King Arthur do take place here. However, there are exceptions to this. For example, Iron Man went back in time to around the year 1000 AD and put the sword in the stone that Arthur would one day pull out. Similarly, Thor came to Camelot when Arthur was king, but he did it after the year 1000. Thor, in that story, only recently became worthy of Mjolnir, and we know that he wasn't yet worthy of it in the year 1000. There's also the fact that in this story, Arthur speaks of the Norse gods as being a forgotten myth. But during the late 5th century, Germanic paganism should actually have been on the rise, since the pagan tribes began invading England in the year 449 AD. Still, even with some continuity problems, this was a great little standalone story, with great art by Steve McNiven. A meeting of two legends, which would go on to inspire them both. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider liking or even subscribing. I certainly enjoyed this story. I think it's great to see Thor interact with Arthurian legend, and I hope we get to see more of it, even if the timeline is a bit of a mess. With that being said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where
You'll behold in breathless wonder